Good. Welcome to our SEAC meeting for the month of April. I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting, call it to order. So we are going to begin with our opening prayer and our land acknowledgement.
Alton, as we know it today,
is rich in the history and modern traditions
of many First Nations and the Métis,
from the lands of the Anishinaabe
to the Attawandaron,
the Haudenosaunee,
and the Métis.
These lands surrounding the Great Lakes
are steeped in Indigenous history.
As we gather today
on these treaty lands,
our Catholic social teachings
call us in solidarity
with our Indigenous brothers and sisters
to honor and respect
the four directions: lands, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors
that walked before us.
All of these wonderful elements of creation exist,
gifted to us by our Creator God. We acknowledge and thank
the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation
for being stewards of this traditional territory.
Thanks very much. Now if you'll join me in our opening prayer. You should all have a copy of it in front of you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We come together in hope from different community groups, answering the same call to service, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in gratitude for the trust placed in us, for the opportunity to serve, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in respect, aware of our diversity, willing to work for the good, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in awe of the wonder and beauty of each of God's children, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in God's name, and as we work together toward the same goal, each piece of the puzzle begins to fit neatly into place, creating a breathtaking picture of love, compassion, courage, and grace. Okay, we have two presentations this evening, so we will begin with our first presentation. So welcome to Nick Lombardo from our research department, who is going to speak to us about suspension data.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm Nick Lombardo. I'm the research analyst here at Halton Catholic. The data that I'm going to present to you today is something that some of you have seen already. You were kind enough to give me some time to consult about it. And it is a continuation of our student census analysis. So if we go to the next slide, I'll explain what a disproportionality analysis is. It's something that we're required to do under the 2017 Anti-Racism Data Standards Act from the province. And the point of this kind of analysis is to see whether or not there are any disproportionalities in outcome amongst our students. And so the outcome here that we're looking at is suspensions. And in particular, what we're concerned about is whether or not a particular group is over or underrepresented amongst those suspended. And the way we figure that out is we take the percentage of students within all of those who are suspended, so in this case, the percentage of students with disabilities, and we divide that by the percentage of students with disabilities amongst the overall population. And what comes out is a disproportionality index, or a DI, that ranges really from 0 to 2, more or less. And the higher the number, above 1, the greater the overrepresentation. The lower the number, the greater the underrepresentation. So what we want to see is 1. And if we see anything that is above or below, that indicates the potential for a systemic disproportionality that requires more analysis. On the next slide, I'll just show you very briefly what to look for in this kind of chart, which is that when you look at it, a color gray is good. In this case, it means it is proportionate. Orange means there's an overrepresentation. The higher the bar, the more overrepresented that group is amongst those suspended. And the lower the bar, or the more blue the bar, the less underrepresented they are. So again, because we're looking at suspensions, which is a negative outcome, really ideally we want to see either gray or blue. And anything orange, again, represents a potential overrepresentation amongst students. So on the next slide is really what I wanted to share with you all today, which is our finding about disproportionality for students with disabilities and without. This data comes from the 2022-2023 school year. The designation of disability comes from the census, so it is students who self-identify as having a disability, including mental health, addiction, physical learning disabilities, ASD, and a host of other definitions. So it does differ from the IEP or what they may have in school. This is self-identified data. This includes both elementary and secondary students combined. And so when we look at this, we see quite clearly, I think, here as an overrepresentation of students with disabilities amongst those suspended. We see for students who identify as not having a disability, it's more or less proportional at 0.9, and that goes for those who are unsure as well. And what this suggests is that there is a disproportionate percentage of those suspended who identify as having disabilities who are suspended. So what it says to us in particular in relation to some of the other disproportionalities we've looked at and that you've seen as well around student achievement and that kind of thing is that it fits with this pattern of sort of disproportionate negative outcomes at times. And so again, this is just a single data point from a single year, but it's something that we think bears further analysis. Thank you.
So are you ready for questions, Nick? Yeah, okay, sorry.
May I ask you a question on the calculation? You said that you were looking at the percentage of children with disabilities within the Catholic. Is this in the Catholic communities board? In comparison with the percentage of children with disability in the general population, right? And you were looking that those two percentage were similar and that's why you were looking for a 1 number, right?
So it's what we were looking at is the denominator there, like the bottom number is the percentage of students with disabilities in our board. So just in our board. The top number is the percentage of students with disabilities amongst those suspended in our board. So if there's 100 students in the board and 20 of them have disabilities and there's 10 students who were suspended and 5 of them have disabilities, that's what we're comparing. The percentage of students who were suspended with disabilities and the percentage of those in the Halton Catholic District School Board population.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, go on. Thank you. So I have a question about the divide between elementary and high school. So if you were to remove the elementary portion, is the high school portion more disproportionate in terms of the amount of students versus the general population? And does that have anything to do with them being self-diagnosed or not?
So one of the reasons first off, that we put them together is because the numbers are actually quite small. We don't have, I believe we had about 900, 1,000 students suspended last year. So it's not a huge pool to pull from anyway. So we had to combine them in order to make sure we had kind of confidence in the numbers. But the thing about the percentages is that it kind of does away with any issue of self-diagnosing versus IEP. So it's the exact same measurement of them in the general population versus suspension. So I don't have a good answer saying yes, it's more in secondary. We know if you can look on our board website, you can see the overall census findings where we do have slightly higher percentage of students in secondary who identify as disabled. But putting them together like this, they have the same kind of, the same ratio as you would expect to see. Yeah.
Yep, go ahead, Andrea.
Have you done any analysis on repeat suspension? Like how many students with disabilities have had repeat suspensions, and is it higher?
We haven't done that at the moment. That's kind of next steps moving forward. This is our sort of first crack at the suspension data.
That's good to hear because, suspension is meant to be something where it's a consequence and it's supposed to deter you from, maybe that same action again. But if you have a certain disability where you don't learn from that, I don't know, it would make me wonder, is that a useful discipline for everybody?
Sure, and appreciating the time, Nick. It's really part of the conversation that's also happening at the senior table, and how do we support administrators who are wanting to have, maintain a student's dignity and understand their complex needs in matters that suspensions are considered. So we are at the very beginning stages of using this information to help improve on, well, not improve, but to capture those situations and to provide the tools to administrators in those situations to help make decisions that again address some of your concerns about making sure we're consequencing the right thing and not something that they're not able to control, for example. I don't know if anyone else wants to add, but that's part of the work that we're committed to, is to take this data and then how do we shift it into either a change in practice or improve our steps that we take, and to have that consideration always at the forefront. I think most administrators in those situations are recognizing how delicate it is and wanting to maintain the dignity of every child. But, I think through our rich conversations, we understand that there's data to support that additional work can be done.
John?
Sure, thanks. Thanks again, Nick. That was succinct and I think well presented to all of us, and some really good questions. And it really leads to more questions. Cassandra was speaking about what next steps are. We were talking about it even today in our senior team, not just with regard to students with disabilities, but to other populations where there's been disparities shown within that. And what we're going to be doing is having some of the senior admin who have those portfolios. That would be Safe Schools. It falls under Human Rights and Equity. It falls under our Family of Schools ones and Special Education, to begin to look at the data a little more, and particularly with some of our principals, begin to look for patterns and look for ways that might allow them to address these more fully and to look for blind spots. Because as we said, we want to make sure we're aware of these discrepancies and these disparities, and that we're trying to rectify them in as thoughtful a way as possible.
Thanks, Dr. Klein. Sorry, yeah.
I just had a question. With our numbers, do we know how they compare to other boards in Ontario?
I don't know exactly. The only boards that have published this kind of data publicly, I believe Hamilton Wentworth has published theirs, but they report it out slightly differently. In general, we see this sort of overrepresentation of students with disabilities and negative outcomes across the province. And the Hamilton data, I believe, supports that as well.
And my other question was, it might be some while back I heard that the ministry was starting to collect this data. Is that, I don't know if anyone is the case. So do you know what happens with the ministry collecting this data and what comes of it? That might be a separate question from you.
Yeah, I know.
Nick, thanks.
Several years ago, the ministry mandated that boards begin to be a little more thoughtful in terms of the data. For instance, race-based data, and which a lot of boards, at least initially, began to resist. Of course, I think most if not all boards have pretty much dived into that. What they're doing with it, I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen any ministry reports of late based on any of that. But the more that they draw from the more boards that are collecting this, the better it can be for the whole province. Because as Nick said, you begin to see patterns that aren't just relegated to Halton Catholic, but are throughout the province, and they could potentially affect things like class sizes. They could affect supports that we have for students. They could affect all sorts of things. But to this point, I haven't seen anything as a response to it, unfortunately. But the collection of the data is important, right? And that's something that the ministry asked for years ago, and now boards are, I think, doing it as fully as possible.
Do we have any other questions for Nick? No? Good. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll look forward to any updates as they come. Thank you. I just have to take one step back. I was so excited to hear from Nick. We need to go back to the approval of the agenda. I was, I'm trying to buy us a little early outing. Item 1.2 is the approval of the agenda. You would have all received a copy of the agenda in your meeting package. Does anybody have any questions, comments with respect to the agenda? Any changes? Okay, could I get a motion to approve the agenda? Brianna, can I get a seconder? Tracy, thank you so much. All right, now we can flip back to our presentations. So our second presentation is from Ashley Fliss, and Ashley is going to speak to us about SEAC.
Great, thank you so much everyone for inviting me here this evening to speak to you about our special equipment amount. Next slide, please. So as you may know, the SEAC provides funding to our board to assist with costs of equipment that's essential to support our students with special education needs. So there are two main components of SEAC. So first is what we refer to as PPA, or per pupil amount, and that is allocated for the purchase of computers, software, training, and peripherals, things like that. Our second section is a claims-based amount. So this funding is allocated for the purchase of non-computer items, such as equipment like walkers, standers, and so on. Next slide, please. So when a student acquires technology through SEAC, through our PPA SEAC amount, they have the opportunity to actually receive training through our LearnStyle coaches. And these coaches will host multiple sessions throughout the school year in a one-on-one or a small group or a whole class setting. And the focus here is to teach our students programs such as Read and Write that will help them access the curriculum. So we're very excited to meet with our LearnStyle partners throughout the year to stay in touch, to get our progress reports, and to see the faces of our coaches. I make myself available to our schools, but I don't see all of the trainers at once, obviously, so it's really nice to see who's the trainer for this year. So these are all of our LearnStyle coaches, our trainers, that you will see if you were to go inside the schools this year. Next slide, please. And we regularly meet with our partners at LearnStyle who share good news stories with us. And it's always so encouraging to hear about the positive experiences that are taking place in our schools. So specifically, I wanted to share this success story with you all today because it highlights how excited our students are when they receive this kind of training. And whether it be a small group or a whole class setting, they really do focus on what their learning is, and they really love to transfer these skills from that small group and then back into the regular classroom. And so we just really wanted to highlight Amanda Burrows because I see her often and I can't hear enough good stories about this specific trainer in one of my schools, because I'm also a special education consultant for 5 schools. So this trainer holds a special spot in my heart. Next slide, please. And so for our LearnStyle partners, they also share with us updated progress reports. So what was really exciting for us to see is in fact that school teachers and parents also attend these sessions. And so we know through our research that when it comes to technology, teacher engagement really increases the likelihood of student success. So we were really happy to see this progress report came in just a couple of weeks ago from LearnStyle, that 10 parents were actually joining in on the sessions. Now these would be one-to-one sessions with their child and our LearnStyle partner, but that has grown, of course, over the course of this year. Next slide, please. And so this is LearnStyle training specifically for our low incidence teachers. So this is an exciting 3-day initiative that we're holding this year, and it's currently being taken place in our schools right now. So we've invited our life skills teachers, our structured teaching teachers, and our community living classroom teachers to a training session held right here in this boardroom earlier in the month of March. And they learned specifically from the Learn Style coaches on different technological platforms such as Boardmaker, Smart Notebook, and Read and Write. And that was day one. And so day two, the coaches met one-on-one with the teachers in their school to create a lesson plan involving their chosen technological platform. And so day three, we're partway through day three right now. The coaches are inside the classrooms being that support system to the teacher while the teacher delivers this lesson. So what you see right here on this slide is a picture specifically of a structured teaching classroom. So these students are learning their lessons through Smart Notebook that is deployed on a smart board. And that little excerpt within that picture is from our classroom teacher who really values this type of learning environment. So she just really wanted to make that known to me as well. And I have personal emails from teachers too, letting me know how important day one was for them. So we're really excited to go through this training. Next slide, please. And so as always at our school board, we strongly continue to encourage the use of previously used equipment. So we utilize an inventory database within our SEAC management system called SEAC, so that clinicians such as occupational therapists can view our inventory and then prescribe this equipment that matches the needs of our new students. So all of our equipment is very well maintained, professionally maintained, and professionally cleaned as well. So we do have also a new system that records and tracks every piece of equipment that you see in our pictures here. We have a new barcode system. So it is exactly tracked within our SEAC system. Next slide, please. So every year, Learn Style offers a $3,000 Ignite grant to our board. And so when we create the opportunity then for our elementary students and our secondary students from grades 4 to 12 and plus who use SEA equipment within their school community, we encourage these students to apply either by themselves or obviously with the support of their special education resource teacher. And the goal here is for the students to share the impact that the SEA equipment has on their learning or ways that SEA training has enhanced their education. And so applicants are, I have an inbox full of applications right now, and I love looking at them all. The application closes May 7th. So at that time, my SEA team will review all of these applications. And what I would love for our SEA team to do is create certificates for all of our students, physically go inside the schools and really congratulate and celebrate all of these learners. These three applicants that I chose to show pictures of today are current applicants. And so we really want to celebrate their success stories. Next slide, please. And so in the past, in order to, for some students to acquire technology, they must have produced an assessment from a qualified professional such as psychoeducational assessment that prescribes technology. So now that the Ministry of Education does not require this type of assessment, our board created an internal process that's fair and equitable among all of our students, and we've called this Track B. So this method entails the administration of an educational assessment called CATIA that is then reviewed by our board staff in order to determine if technology is required. So this process has been in place for a few years. It's solid, but now what's new to our board is that this year we have come together to design a Track B method specifically for our multilingual learners. And our special education department, including psychology, are currently consulting with our ESL department on the most equitable and fair way to allocate technology and Learn Style training to those ML learners who are on the trajectory to receive special education programming. So this process may include the monitoring of a specific ESL diagnostic over time, alongside with specific CATIA subtests. So we are very excited to finish the completion of this process and then roll it out in the fall to all of our special education resource teachers and our ESL teachers. And next slide, please, which is a thank you for inviting me here today. And I hope to be here next year to share with you highlights for next year.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Is there any questions at all on presentation or SEAC in general? Yeah, Brianna?
I just have a question about the device that a child's given, right? So does it follow them? It follows them through their high school, but does it follow them through to post-secondary? Or is that something then changes once they?
It would change after post-secondary. It stays within our secondary schools. So it does not go to them to post-secondary.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Yes, I think it's great that you guys are capturing the multi-language learners, but just out of curiosity, you guys are rolling it out after you fine tune it. So is it every multi-language learner that would qualify for some sort of screening, or only ones going towards some sort of special education services later?
So I'm also looking to my coordinator, Jen Thompson, who sits on this committee together with our senior manager for psychology and our ESL department lead. So it is not all ESL students or ML learners. It's those that are flagged at our board teams. So those that we foresee are on the trajectory for special education services, or who will require those services. So that's why it encompasses so many people on this subcommittee or this committee, because we don't want to make the wrong move. We want to carefully go over the ESL diagnostics with our ESL teachers and make the appropriate step for the technology.
Is there any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Thanks again so much, Ashley. We look forward to seeing you again. All right. Moving ahead. Item number 4 is the minutes of the March 18th, 2024 SEAC meeting. Again, those minutes would have been provided for you in your meeting package. Does anybody have any questions, comments on the minutes? No? Okay. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes of the March 18th meeting? Brianna, seconded. Brianna, okay. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 5, business arising from previous meetings. You will see that in your meeting package again is information related to any of the outstanding items that we have. I think the only one that I wanted to speak to really briefly was the pro grant. So I owe a return email. Cassandra has done a great job connecting me with someone, because this always falls on my plate somehow. So Cassandra and I had a conversation about a potential speaker for our pro grants, someone that could look at things from a mental health perspective as well as from a special education perspective. Cassandra, do you want to speak to it a little bit more?
Sure. We were dialoguing around wanting to take advantage of the opportunity for some parent engagement. So we've extended an invitation to Michelle Catino. She is she works with School Mental Health Ontario. She also does some consulting on her own. And her topic would be to address the themes of Catholic social teaching and maintaining the dignity of each student, understanding issues of equity. She speaks a little bit about intersectionality. As we know, students with exceptionalities often have, they can be racialized, they can have mental health, there can be a number, queer and questioning, there's a number of intersectionalities that a lot of our students either have at the beginning when they're in elementary school, or they develop as they get into secondary school. And she would be remiss not to talk about mental health and how that affects students with exceptionalities. And so it would be an opportunity for parents to hear these messages and understand what it is that we're trying to do in schools and in our community partners, and then what parents can do to support at home. So if it's agreeable, I think we have a tentative date. Do you want to? I do have it in front of me, May 29th. It would be virtual, and it will be recorded so that if anyone can't watch it in live time, that it would be accessible on our website. And so those details, once we have agreement, I think if it's okay, or I don't know, maybe we are presenting it as is, as it's happening. But certainly wanted to just get some feedback, and then we can start the communication train of making sure that members of SEAC and in the communities that you serve are aware of this opportunity.
So thanks, Cassandra. Great contact again. We had a little bit of dialogue. We hadn't gotten a lot of feedback or ideas on moving forward with any particular speaker. So Cassandra's like, I think we have somebody. Jumped ahead. I loved everything that the speaker would be able to address and engage the attendees with. So I think it just hits on a number of different pieces that, you know, we often talk about quite often around this table. So I think it's great. Hopefully everybody's on board. We wanted to make sure, again, that we took advantage of those funds, that we didn't lose them, and that we could engage a speaker for the program series. So we'll go ahead. I will send an email after this meeting, and we'll go ahead and do that, get the communication out and start promoting the event. And like Cassandra said, even if we don't have a lot of people that come that evening, it's always recorded, and we do get people that go back afterwards and take a look at it. So that was the update that I had as far as items for the business arising. Was there any questions from anyone on any of those items? Rick,
yeah, just quickly, Trustee Agnew, I'm just going back to the special education plan review meeting we had last week. Yeah. I think Denise wanted us to mention it, just to remind the members to please go through the plan and take a peek at any of the items in there and make recommendations, suggestions on the form that Margaret had sent out on the email. So just a reminder to take a peek at the spec ed plan if you could, and make any suggestions or comments or anything you want to put there on the form. Thanks.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, and we'll talk in a little more detail as well when we get to the committee updates, but thank you for addressing. No, it doesn't. No, that's perfect. Thank you for addressing that. It is on our business arising, so that's really important. But we can talk in a little bit more detail because we did have that meeting, so that's great. Was there any questions otherwise on that table? No? Okay, perfect. Let me just go. Okay, perfect. Over to item number 6, which is policy review, and I will put this over to Cassandra to lead us on the discussions for these policy reviews.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So there's 2 policies that are being shared with SEAC this evening. Both have overlap in terms of portfolios. The first one I wanted to bring to your attention is the integrated accessibility standards. And this policy is being shared with SEAC for your information and for your feedback. It really is a policy that's in place to comply with the Ontario Ministry of Labour and in conjunction with the Minister of Education in terms of accessibility standards, helping to break down barriers to all persons, whether they're employees or students of the board. So you'll see that the edits really do reflect current language and updates with regards to both those portfolios, just to make sure that they're up to date. But we wanted to share this with you this evening so that you would have an opportunity to take a look at it and provide some feedback. Again, some of it is specific to employee groups, and other areas do talk a little bit about individual accommodation plans. I think some of the areas that would be of your interest, like I said, it's mostly an employee, a document for employment, but because it does speak to areas such as assistive devices, service animals, general support, that it would be something that might be relevant to this group as well. So the red line will be shared, I believe, tomorrow, so that you can take a better look. You won't need to read it to font on the screen, but definitely wanted to make sure that you're aware of what was coming in hot into your emails with the minutes. I don't know if there's any questions around that policy. It's a policy that really falls under human resources, but because of the nature, we play nice with them. And then the second policy is policy number I-40, which is also appearing on your screen. You'll see the latest version, red line edits, and it's surrounding bullying prevention and intervention. This is also a joint, well, it falls under Anthony Cordero, who's here with us today. But because there's representation from the Special Education Services Department and applies widely to the students that we service, it's brought to your attention today for your review and input. Again, just like the previous policy, this policy will be shared with you in your email so that you can take a closer look and provide some input. It's been updated significantly to reflect the ministry's updating and commitment to bullying prevention and interventions in schools. So it is an important policy, not that the other one isn't, but it is an important policy for your feedback and to ensure that it creates safe schools and schools that are welcoming for all, irrespective of who they are. And so we're very fortunate to be able to provide feedback on both these policies. I will tell you that there's one more policy that isn't exclusive. I think it is exclusively spec ed. So that policy will be presented in May, but it does have to do with the IPRC process, the final policy that our community will be seeking some input from. So, yeah.
Thank you, Cassandra. And for these, so I understand these are going out tomorrow, and Margaret and I, we chatted about the red line versions going out. So allowing SEAC members to have time to go through those, make reviews, give feedback. Okay, so are we giving a due date for that? Will we be taking this up at our next SEAC meeting for discussion? What's the timelines for these?
Sorry, so right now it's scheduled to be to appear on the May 14th date. But it is important that we do get the feedback from this committee. So I'm not sure if a week is a sufficient amount of time. And if that is, I think that still gives us enough time to make it for the May 14th, but I certainly don't want to make it feel rushed, but that is the date that it is scheduled for review.
And that's for both policies?
Yeah.
Okay. So just thoughts from the members around the table. I know that we've brought, policies here before. We want to make sure that we give it, its time and energy to go through them. Is a week enough? Is 2 weeks? Would you prefer to have time to go over it over the next month? We bring these back to the SEAC meeting in May for, a review if there's any changes. I welcome your feedback. I get to go through this a policy committee. So for me, it doesn't make a difference. But for the members of the committee, yeah, go ahead, Jessica.
I mean, personally, a week is fine in terms of timeline. However, how are we providing the feedback, and do we get to talk to each other or see how we interact? I don't want to delay the board policy reviews, but if there's an alternate way to have the conversation.
So go ahead. So the idea, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'll send out a form to everybody, and then I'll arrange a meeting. I'll send out a Teams invite to whoever wants to join.
Does that work? Okay. Is that okay with everybody? Because again, we can also, if your preference is to have time to review it, and then we can put both of these on the May agenda. And at that point, if there's any discussion that's required, we can do that. If you'd prefer to do it, with the form, and then we can set up a Teams meeting. Is that good? I see nod. Yeah, go ahead, Jessica, make the decision. Then I don't have to. The form, perfect. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll send out the forms. If people need more time, like we send out the forms, we will send a reminder out as well. If you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't had time to take a look at this yet, let us know. And at that point, we can advise whether or not we're going to be prepared to get that feedback back in time for that policy meeting. But we'll start with sending it out tomorrow with the red line versions, and then we'll do a follow-up to see where everybody's at. But Andrea can attest to some of the conversations we've had at the Bullying Prevention and Intervention Committee meetings. We've had a lot of eyes on that policy, and it's got some great changes to it, but it definitely is something that impacts our students with special education needs. So I think take a minute to take a look at it if you can. If you have any questions at all about it, or if there's anything that you wanted to add, please do that. And like I said, we'll do that through the forums. Yeah, go ahead.
General question, when we are talking about these policies, the feedback, we have to go to our associations to get feedback, or is this more like a personal approach? How is the expectation?
So it doesn't need to necessarily go back to your association in a formalized capacity. So you're here sort of representing that association. So if you see something, like if I was taking a, well, I'm not an Easter Seals rep anymore, but if I was looking at things from the Easter Seals lens, I might take an approach to take a look at specific pieces that may impact the community that I represent, or the association. The same thing I'm putting at Jessica, there might be pieces on there that may have to do with something that pertains to the gifted community. So really, sort of your lens, taking a look at it from your association's perspective, I think is great. There's no need to have to take it back and have your association review it. You can do that as the member of SEAC on this committee. Great. You're welcome. Perfect. Great. So thank you so much for that. We will get those out to you tomorrow, and then we'll follow up with any questions that anybody may have. All right, moving along. Item number 7, which is action and information items. So thank you to everyone who submitted budget priority. You will have seen, were they all included in there, Margaret, in the package? Yeah. So all of those suggestions were included in your budget package, or sorry, in your meeting package. Not a budget package. You don't want a budget package. In your meeting package. I took a look through what is here, and there's some really great suggestions. So thank you again for everyone that took the time to take a look at them. I don't know, Cassandra, if you can lend a little bit of more information on sort of what happens with some of those priorities, where they go from there, and the role that this input plays, if that's not putting you on the spot.
Oh, no, not at all. Tomorrow we actually have a meeting to discuss priorities. So this is perfect timing so that I can present. In addition to, there were some budget surveys, administrators have had some input. We've been talking about it at the senior table so that we can capture what our priorities are and ensure that those areas are addressed in a way that our budget aligns with. It is a challenging time. I'm sure everyone's aware that there are some budgetary constraints that are affecting all boards, so we're not unique, unfortunately, to feeling the effects of working within a budget. But I do think that having your voice is going to be really helpful in identifying some next steps in the areas that we can support. So I'm really appreciative to receive this information. I'll walk into that meeting tomorrow armed with some of your comments. And even if there are comments where it doesn't necessarily only apply to our students, it gives inspiration or it gives conversation to a wider, in a wider context. So I think that this will be really helpful in our conversations.
Yeah, and just to add to that, thank you. So just to add to that, what I was going to say is when I went through this, there's going to be obviously some items here that would be specific to the special education budget and that envelope and how that works. But then there's items in here that, may fall under a facilities budget or may fall under a capital, capital expenditures. So there's, so they're while they impact our students, as Cassandra was saying, something like, there was a member here at SEAC who mentioned about accessible parking spots, increasing the number of accessible parking spots. That's not necessarily that's not a special education budget piece, but it obviously impacts not just our students, but then also people who visit our schools and staff who may require those spots. So I'm grateful that those ideas come through our SEAC committee. And as Cassandra said, those will get shared. And then, there would be somebody in facilities that would take a look at that recommendation as well coming through SEAC and pay it that same heed as if it was, not just going to the superintendent of spec ed. So, so those are great. All these are great suggestions, and we look forward to seeing what can happen. Yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
So I didn't fill this out, but I just do have one suggestion. Since you're taking it in tomorrow with you, just around the wait times for the psych ed assessments, it's always long. So if there's budget to add more analysts or
So I don't know if you saw the announcement from Leche. I try not to pay attention, but sometimes I have to. So there was an announcement that was made with respect to budget items, and one of those has to do actually with the psychoeducational assessments and the wait times. Now, how that rolls down from the press conference to the actual implementation, what those dollars look like, we actually I had a conversation earlier with Director Klein about that. So it's still being fleshed out at our level. But I think the good thing was, Andrea, again, whether it translates to something tangible here from a budget perspective, the good thing about it is that it was on the radar. Like it was an item that was discussed, and there was monies put towards it. So again, we are yet to see how that trickles down here, but it does tell me that it's a priority at the ministry as well. So.
I'm like you. I'm trying to be glass half full, but the monies were sort of dumped. All the memos were dumped late on Friday afternoon, which is not unusual for the ministry. We would hope to have these in March, April at the latest, and obviously we're heading into May. Overall, the numbers, I think they talk about numbers going up in Ontario, but they haven't kept up with inflation, and there's increasing costs that that haven't been bridged by this. So yeah, the details will be very important to see how much has come in it. They have a habit of over announcing things, so it's like, wow, that's like, it's a billion here, a billion here, a billion here, but it's 1 billion, but after a while you seem to think it was $5 billion. So we've got to look at the details very carefully. But I would agree with the chair that the parents have been pretty clear in terms of being, that would be an area they want to focus on. Andrea, would be that time delay or gap or waiting period, and it's nice to see that they've heard that, and they're at least pointing to that as an element of the budget.
And these can also be items too when we have Aaron. Aaron's coming in next month, May, June. Yeah.
Aaron's not leaving this place for all.
Well, that's fair. So when Aaron comes into our meeting, as some of you will remember, when we do that budget, when we do have that budget conversation, these are also great questions to ask at that time. It's sort of, how do those dollars translate? What does that look like? Some of these pieces, he loves answering questions, so he would love those. But yeah, so definitely it's well taken, Andrea. Thank you.
I will say too that one of the things I do, I don't hand out compliments often to the Ministry of Education, but I like the idea that they have with this budget, they have streamlined things. So there were, you've heard of envelopes and pockets. They've streamlined them to about half the number and not half the number of money. It's easy to streamline things and say the money's not attached. So they've made them, I think, a little more, and that has been something that has been from parents and other people to say, look, I don't understand. There's a myriad of buckets and pockets, and so they have done that and not reduced money into the total. So that's good to hear how it works out in the end. But I do like the fact that you can make them a little, hopefully more accessible and comprehensible to people.
There we go. Was that all the comments that you received? And the reason I ask is because we submitted something on behalf of HDSA as well, a few different comments, but I didn't see them on there. So wondering if our submission didn't go through, if we should resubmit it, or if that was just a snapshot.
There were several links at the same time that we had solicited information from SEAC. There was the general one, and from looking at the number of respondents, it looks like there were a number of, so it's quite possible that when we're looking at the data tomorrow that we'll be seeing some of the comments that pertain to SEAC particularly, but I don't know if the form.
No, only 3 people responded on the form and
right.
1 email.
Do you want to resend? Is that? Sorry, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I did use the form and we put like a list of things, and I got like a message like form was successfully completed, and even take some screenshots that I sent to you and the association so they could see what we submitted, but it's not.
Okay, so
reflected.
Do you still have the information saved?
Yeah, because we shared it with HDSA what we submitted on.
Perfect. If you can absolutely. No, that's important. Absolutely. So if you don't mind resending again, it may pop up in one of those other forms, but please, just so that we can ensure that we have it, if you don't mind resending, that would be great. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, was there any questions at all with respect to the budget priorities? No? Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so moving on to item number 8, which is our board committee updates. So we've had a couple of meetings since our last SEAC meeting. 8.1 is the accessibility plan subcommittee meeting. And I'm going to put Cassandra on the spot only because this has been a long time coming, and there's been a lot of work done with respect to how this committee has been comprised and what the mandate of the committee has become. So I wanted to know if you wouldn't mind chatting with the group about that.
No, they're all my friends now. So the opportunity to get together, so the accessibility plan is mandated by the ministry so that we have some criteria that's met within the board. And there is a window of time that we had to complete successfully adhering to those components. So within the 5 years, we had to install, wheelchair accessible components, washrooms, this kind of thing, structural things. And it's reviewed every 5 years, I believe. But in my understanding of the plan, started having really rich conversations around, okay, so we're compliant with the plan, check, we do that well. What are some other areas that we recognize are barriers to accessibility within our students? And so it's kind of grown into this bigger committee with, of course, participation and presence from SEAC, where we're looking at a number of areas, inclusivity on trips, accessibility on trips. We're talking about just accessing the curriculum. We have students who are deaf, hard of hearing. How do we ensure that they're accessing the curriculum in a way that is, again, meaningful to them, but also maintains their dignity? And so we're looking at a number of areas. At some point, I thought maybe we had bitten off more than we could chew, but we're kind of whittling away at the plan. And I think we have a follow-up meeting. We talked about a follow-up meeting. I don't remember. Yeah, so we will be having some follow-up meetings before the end of this school year, and with the hope of kind of creating our own internal measures to ensure that we are not only compliant with accessibility standards within the province, but also leading the way and making courageous steps in our board to ensure that accessibility, is integrated in all that we do. So.
Many of you will know around this table, we've had discussions sort of throughout the years about little different components. So, access to accessible recreation programs or access to accessible, inclusive sports opportunities in our schools. And there's been little things like that that have popped up over time. And it was like, well, where does that sit? Like, where do you actually move that forward? Is that through, curriculum? Is that through something else? And so this has sort of become a place where some of those items land. So if it has, it says accessibility, but in our mind, accessibility is, about inclusion and removing barriers, not just physical, but, attitudinal. So it's really taking a look at that. So it says accessibility, but it really is pertaining to all those different areas. So it's been great. It's been good to have a place for these ideas to land. To have these conversations. And we also know that, what impacts one often impacts many. What's good for one is good for all. And so having these, these discussions and also sharing ideas and sharing experiences and what's been working well and what someone might be doing that we're not aware of. So I think it's, again, I'm really grateful because we just have a place that we can now park some of these ideas and, see them through that we didn't really have to do before. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be great. It's a good committee so far. We've managed to get some stuff done already. So, okay, so that's the accessibility plan subcommittee. The special education plan review committee, Rick touched on it a little bit. We did have a meeting last week. We had a meeting. Rick, do you want to speak a little bit more about it?
Sure, yeah. So Denise Colley chaired the meeting, and short meeting, get things rolling. Staff does a lot of the actual material and updates and making sure everything's based up to date and with the ministry standards. And a lot of the information in the review and the plan is actually ministry mandated. So a lot of that's done by the staff. SEAC, we provide comments every year as part of the review process. So I believe we're still waiting on some additional comments or or suggestions from SEAC members. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the document, I know it's a big document, it's 100+ pages, but a lot of that is ministry stuff. Yeah. So you can gloss through that. Look at the I guess stuff for for IEPs and IPRC processes and appeals processes and stuff that maybe pertains to your specific association. Maybe you can look at anything that maybe can be updated or can be added. And all comments or thoughts or ideas are welcome. I spent a lot of time going through links to make sure the links work last year because I couldn't find a lot that I could add to it. So anything that can help out the spec ed plan review. If you have some ideas, by all means, share it on the forum. I think the form went out twice already. I think through emails, and we can maybe Morgan. Don't add it to your workload, but if you can send it again, just as a reminder to the members if they have comments to add it to the form if they have a chance to.
Yeah. So again, just to reiterate what Rick said, you don't have to, go through the whole full 100-page document in its entirety and make comments on all of it. You can, if you like to, and we would welcome that. But again, if there's just sort of sections that speak to you, speak to your committee, if you're like, you know what, I've got, this much time, I want to take a look at this, or maybe acronyms are your thing, and you want to take a look at acronyms to make sure that those are there. We welcome any feedback that you provide. The more sets of eyes on it, the better. And then we feel like it's, a collaborative piece that our SEAC committee has reviewed. You don't, that's okay. That's why we have a committee. So we'll send that out again, and please just take a look. And if you have anything you want to add, we'd love to hear it. Okay, moving along to item 8.3, and Amanda is not here this evening. So just wanted to let people know that we do have an Easter Seals alternate who will be joining our SEAC committee, which is great. We've been without an alternate for a while with that association, and we just always love to have more and more people at our SEAC table. So I'm always excited to have somebody else join. And so the individual will be Darren, I'm going to butcher it, but Utek will be the alternate member on the Halton Catholic District School Board representing Easter Seals. So really excited to have, again, that individual join us. And yeah, so I think that's pretty straightforward. Item number 8.4 is an association report from Voice for Deaf and Hard of Hearing. Rick?
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. So as some of you may know, May is Speech and Language Awareness Month, and Voice celebrates with a variety of events all month long. The biggest event we have is called Dress Loud Day, and that's basically an event where hopefully schools who are participating ask their students to come in and dress in wild, wacky clothing, accessories, socks, whatever, just to recognize awareness of deaf and hard of hearing students. And we do have on our website a bunch of, we have a Dress Loud Day committee, which has been really hard at work preparing materials for students through the educators. So if educators, teachers want to take a peek at our website, I have the link on this form here. There's some really interesting games. There's a Jeopardy game on there, which is pretty tough. I didn't do too well on it. Really hard, actually. So I need to go back to school clearly and learn about some terms. But no, it's just some interesting games for kids of all ages on there. And by all means, it's a way to raise awareness for our deaf and hard of hearing students. Moving on, so it can be any day of the month in May. We used to have a set day, but then not all school boards could accommodate because there's lots going on. So we encourage schools to pick a day that works for them and then enjoy that day and celebrate it. We can share photos to our Instagram site. I believe there's even a prize or two prizes, I believe, that's on there. I don't know the exact prizes. So hashtag Dress Loud, and check on our Instagram and our Facebook website, on our internet website, and look for more details for any teachers or board staff that want to be involved more in it. And I know special shout out to Denise Colley and her staff for planning the Deaf and Hard of Hearing picnic later this month, which is awesome, in May. It's always a great event. This year, we have our Voice Family Camp, which has been on hiatus since COVID started. So it's probably the most popular event on our calendar. Families really look forward to it. It's been 5 years since we've had it. So we're having that on September 13th to the 15th. It's at a new camp which we've never been to called Cedar Ridge Camp, which is located east of Bancroft. So it's a bit of a hike, but We've had our representatives go up there and review the camp, and they say it's perfect, it's wonderful, it's accessible, it's got everything we need for our members, and we're hoping to have a great turnout. More information is available on our Voice Camp page on our website, and the link is in this form as well. Each year we have our Voice Conference. Last year we had an in-person conference in October, and this year we're going back to a virtual conference in November. Plans are just starting now to arrange for speakers and panels and other details to be shared on our website and our social media pages. And we've just started a youth mentorship program. I believe there's been 4 or 5 meetings where we have older teens and young adults who are deaf and hard of hearing mentor younger teens. And it's typically on a Friday of a month, and it's a couple of hours or an hour and a half. The kids get together, they speak about any challenges with school or social challenges, and they also, I think they get together and do a Kahoot game. So it's a great way for a lot of these kids are the only kids in their school that are deaf and hard of hearing. So it's a great way to network and meet other kids, even if it's through virtual contact. It's a great way to get together and provide support, ask questions, have the older teens mentor the younger teens and answer any questions that they have. Registration information is at the email there, teens@voicefordeafkids.com. And I think that's it. We have parent meetups. With everything that happened with COVID, we're still trying to reestablish stuff. We used to have all our social events. That's really important for parents. We are primarily a parent support group for families that have deaf and hard of hearing children. So supporting the parents and networking with the parents and sharing successes, challenges, obstacles, IEPs, IPRC processes, all that kind of stuff is something that parents come together and discuss. So those parent meetups are planned shortly or soon to be happening. And they didn't have any information when I prepared this report. So that's hopefully going to be on our website. And our program coordinator is really good at updating Instagram with information and updates. So if you're interested or you have friends or anyone that's looking to have support for the deaf and hard of hearing child, I encourage you to look on our websites and our social medias and see what events may be upcoming. We welcome everybody. It's a great chance to meet new people and serve our members and give them all the support that they need. And that's it for me. Thank you. Any questions?
Is there any questions? Yeah, Denise, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that Dress Loud Day in our board will be on May 13th, and it was chosen it's a Monday. It was chosen by Strategic Communications, so our senior team would be able to participate, and we could tweet out photos of our senior team dressed loud.
Thank you. Beat me to it. That was my question, Denise. Okay, so May 13th, perfect. And I just want to say, Rick, those parent meetups, I remember way back in the days when McLean was first diagnosed with a hearing loss and attending those and learning so much. There was presentations and speakers who came in, and I was overwhelmed and really helped to present options. And that's the first time I actually ever met Rhonda and Bill. Yes. Was at one of those, and really was life-changing. It was the first time I heard about cochlear implants. It was the first time I heard about a bunch of different things. So really instrumental for a lot of parents. Yeah.
So we're just going on with that. We're the same way. We first found out diagnosis, reaching out to other parents is how we managed to navigate that initial 6 months, 2 years. And that's, a lot of parents are caught off guard by it. So meeting up with other parents to provide that support and guidance is crucial. So I think it's a shock sometimes, and going through that networking with other parents is a big part of kind of grinding your way through it and raising your children successfully. So.
And if any associations, if you have those opportunities, if you have, parent connections, if you have, parent meetups, if everything, let us know, because we can also, obviously do it through an association report. We love association reports. I'm so happy you did one tonight, Rick. I'd like to see those at every meeting if we could. But we can, put that on our social media. That's something that we, SEAC can put out. We can tweet that out. We can let people know. We can provide a link to it so people know that that's an option. On behalf of your association, we can tag you. So if you have things like that and you want to get the word out there, we're happy to put that on our SEAC Twitter and let people know that those meetups and those parent resources, et cetera, are available. I'm happy to do that. Okay, thanks again so much, Rick. Moving over to communication is SEAC. 9.1 is our trustee report. Over to you, Trish. You can't blame Cassandra for today.
It did throw me off though. I was like, oh, how much do I need to update since I know. Darn. Actually, no, I do have quite a bit. Okay. Can I also, I just want to ask Chair, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Can I give an update? I believe Andrea Loco Ricci was not at our last bullying prevention meeting. And do you mind if I share?
Not at all, please.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So we did, the Bullying Prevention Intervention Committee met April 10th. A lot of this meeting was spent reviewing and discussing, as Superintendent Jack Caldera mentioned, policy II-40, the bullying policy. There are many changes being made. Our committee did meet on Teams one time. I think it was well over 2 hours we spent kind of going through it line by line. So I know when you mentioned about can we dive deeper, it's really worth it. I would like to say that just because of the changes that came up from our Teams meeting and then in our discussion when the Bullying Prevention Committee met, there were a couple of things we caught, a couple of things that were shared. Obviously, we know everything that we want is not going to be in there, but we had a really good discussion about it, and I do want to encourage everyone to take the time, if we can. I know how valuable our time is, but if we can take the time to look through it, because I mean, I know from personal experience as well as other parents that a lot of our kiddos with special needs end up. This is probably the policy I've looked at the most before being a trustee, and it's a policy that I do direct parents to as well. So we want it readable. We want it updated to not just echo the Ministry of Education, but also what is relevant in our community. So I do encourage that, and I know there is a push to get it to the policy meeting, but there's also a push for us to get it right. So if I can just reiterate that. So we discussed that. We also, there is a partnership with the Bullying Prevention Intervention Committee and our communications team here at the board to create a set of graphics on bullying. And they're just trying to get a nice cohesive graphics, I guess, that are going to go out both for elementary and then for secondary. And the message is recognize, report, refuse. And they've done an amazing job. They presented it. We shared some feedback, and yeah, we had really good feedback on that as well. So when we see these graphics, I will share them, or Andrea, sorry, at our next meeting, because we meet again, the Bullying Prevention Committee meets in end of May. And so by our June meeting, I think we'll have something we can demo here. And then that was the bullying prevention. Oh, and then Council of Chairs is meeting May 22nd at St. FX, and there is a presentation. So in the Bullying Prevention Committee, can I just say BPIC? We have learned about a pilot project that our board is doing with our CYCs, and it's called the Second Step Student Program, as well as teacher training. And there is going to be a presentation by our board CYC on how it's been implemented and what they're looking to do moving forward. So hopefully I don't know if you can tune in, or maybe even in our June meeting, we can share a little bit of update on that. So those are 3 things from the Bullying Prevention Committee. From the board table, we had a few meetings. A lot of our meetings were around policy. Again, the changes, the wording, there's a lot of updates coming up. So we had a lot of discussions on II-40, the bullying. We had discussions on the I-20 integrated accessibility standards, II-45, the equity inclusive education policy, that one was discussed. Another one was voluntary confidential self-identification of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students. We're really good at brevity in this board. And so there's been a lot of discussions. I don't know if anybody ever tunes into the board table. There's a lot of discussion about these policies and a lot of strong opinions. So we are working to try and have the policy working group. They're editing it, but it's nice that we are asked for feedback and they do listen. So I do encourage, I know you send us stuff like 2 or 3 times, but we're slow learners, but I think we're getting it, that our feedback does matter. And then lastly, there was a presentation at the April 16th board meeting by Superintendent Crowell. He presented on the ESL program, and it's actually the multilingual learners. And this was really neat. So it was the April 16th. If you do go back into our YouTube, it's a very encouraging and positive, uplifting. Like I was like, I want to volunteer at this place. It sounds good. We have 3 locations in our board: Burlington, Oakville, Milton. The elementary, they reach approximately 1,000 multilingual learners in grades 1 to 8. There's kindergarten support. We have close to 800 learners that are supported in our high schools. They do wellness programs, summer camps, March breaks, bake exchange, holiday events. They had everything, book club. Yeah, it was really encouraging. So if you go back to listen to any part of a board meeting, I would listen to that one. And that was September 16th. It's at the beginning and you could, yes. But it was really encouraging. And, you know, in our different organizations, if there are people with English as their second language, this was a really encouraging program to share. So that is all. I think that's the most I've spoken in in our meetings now, but I like going first. Thanks. Any questions?
Any questions at all for Trish? I know I was looking over here and I could see things being scratched off the list, Trish, so. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, and now for the superintendent report.
Ditto. No, just joking. I have lots to say. We actually thought it might, it took us 7 months, 8 months, but we were like, maybe we should reverse the order. And so if it works for me too. So this month, of course, we're acknowledging Autism Awareness Month. We know that there's a lot of literature out there that indicates that as many as 1 in 5 students are being identified with autism. And those are our students who are going to be adults and taking care of us. And we want to make sure that we're providing conditions for them to thrive and to become citizens of the world. So really appreciative to all students who have a diagnosis of autism, but as they say, if you know a person with autism, you know a person with autism. There's so many varying skills, and it's one component of a person's identity, and it doesn't make the whole child. So really intentional about saying students with autism. I know that in maybe as many as 5 years ago, it was a campaign to even just capture that title in a way that's dignified, that it is a part of a person's personality and not the whole person. That would go for a number of other areas as well. This month I was fortunate to meet with ABC, so thank you both to Jessica Lim and Maria Lorenko for your time and for providing some feedback. And again, I remain available to connect with all of the groups that are representative here today. We already talked about the tentative parent engagement. I think I'll cross out tentative and make it the parent engagement night. Will take place on May 29th virtually, featuring Michelle Catino. This month on April 3rd, I was actually asked to be a panelist on the Black Student Union's, it was like a retreat almost. And there were a number of us on the panel that identified as Black or racialized, and we had an opportunity to answer questions. Some were prepared, some were on the spot from students in all of the high schools. So there was representation from each high school. And it was great because there were not only students who identified as racialized, but again, had different intersectionalities. And even after being asked questions, students came up to talk to me and to ask questions about my path and my journey. It was such an uplifting opportunity, just thinking about the landscape in which I grew up in, and then to be in an environment such as that, talking to students who had questions about how to get into education and post-secondary and all their gifts and talents. So it was a great opportunity to connect with our community. We do have some staffing updates. We did receive some retirement notices, and I know Glenda's not here today, but Glenda Brown, our senior manager of the CYCs and our mental health lead, has put in her retirement. I had the pleasure of knowing Glenda when I was a vice principal in Dufferin Peel, and we worked through some really difficult situations together. I don't know if Jessica, we worked in the same family of schools when I was in Dufferin Peel too, so I've outed Jessica. And our relationship, our connection. And so it's it was my first year as an administrator, and then my first year being here. Glenda's here. So it's kind of full circle for me. And I'm hoping that in the next couple of months, we'll be able to thank her in person for all the work that she's done and advocacy that she's done for our board. We also received a retirement notice from Rhonda Boyle. She actually did one of our presentations, our Deaf Hard of Hearing ICERT. And again, I'm hoping to have her recognized for all the work that she's done, over 33 years of service. So a lot of capacity. You know, I said, before you go, I want to ask you some questions. She's like, yeah, I have nothing to lose. I can say whatever I want to say. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I wanted to acknowledge her in this forum as well. April 22nd, was that just last week? It feels longer. We had an opportunity to recognize again the Spirit of Inclusion winners at the Student of Excellence, Awards of Excellence. I've been to weddings that weren't as nice as this event. It was top tier, and you know, steamed the ball gown for next year. I will be ready. And it was just awesome to see all the students who received recognition, but particularly, of course, I have a soft spot for our students of inclusion. I've already talked about, we've already had rich conversations about policies, cross that off. Best Buddies Dance. So that took place on April 17th. We had over 400 people attend, 185 students, 173 school staff, and 38 volunteers. It was amazing. Again, I haven't been to weddings as nice as maybe showers, you know, stag and does. This was a really nice event, and the kids had a blast. Again, a really heartwarming opportunity for all the students who were in attendance. We wanted to say a shout out and a thank you to our facilities team, Graham Watkins, Joe DeMello, as well as the Holy Trinity team for hosting, the principal, Teresa Castellarin, Pat Uranicic, and I apologize for maybe not pronouncing that properly, and the special education team at Holy Trinity, Daryl Joseph and his AV students who kept the tunes going. I don't know, so at one point the adults, we were rapping to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and just having a really good time. So, you know, I think a good time was had by all. And then Ryan Latimer and the Exceptional Shield student volunteers were absolutely nothing short of amazing, as well as the team within special education services at the SEAC, Denise Coolidge, and like there's so many people to thank. So it was amazing, amazing, amazing. And, you know, we took lots of good pictures, lots of videos. I think it was trending on X. We did get selected randomly to participate in a SIP and SEA audit. Unfortunately, we don't have that good luck in the lucky numbers, but the lottery. But we received such very valuable feedback about how we are managing and ensuring that students have access to the resources that they need to succeed. So both Ashley and Jen, we've got to spend a lot of quality time together through that process, through the ministry. And then, as luck would have it, in the middle of that audit, we were selected for a mental health audit. So we're 2 for 2. So yeah, so that audit is in process, and we get to talk a lot about being a partner to the Ministry of Health. They're examining some of the health partners, so school boards would be one of them, and we were one of the randomly selected school boards to participate. And so I think we have a follow-up meeting next week as part of this process, and so hopefully be done and not a third audit this year, please, for anyone who's listening online. We did receive new funding for a school for Georgetown, which is really exciting because that allows us to really respond to student need and an opportunity to build a community up in Georgetown. So that's been excellent. And I know that we have 3 elementary schools and 1 secondary school penned to open for September 2024. And again, we'll be supporting those new communities as well. This month, our board was invited to participate in what's being called Leading Mentally Healthy Schools 2.0. And it's an opportunity for administrators and superintendents to get together and mental health leads to get together to look at some of the resources that are available on School Mental Health Ontario in particular, but how do we implement them in a way that supports parents supporting students, supporting parents supporting themselves with mental health, and changing the narrative around what mental health is. I know as a school principal, we would have parent engagement and call it, mental health and well-being, and no one would come because there was still stigma around talking about mental health. And yet we know coming in and out of the pandemic that there is such a great need. So I'm really fortunate to have some secondary administrators who will be part of that committee so that we can use their position to support the feeder schools and then augment the committee so that every family of schools has a mental health lead on this committee to support parent communities that with mental health, because we know that mental health is health. This month we had some information sessions at the 3 sites with regards to giftedness, for potential gifted candidates, I guess. And so through our conversations with ABC, we're looking at ways to respond to those communities in the upcoming school year. And I know that there are a number of students who may find themselves making that decision as to what does giftedness mean to them and where do they see themselves thriving. So we've been having rich conversations around that as well. And then I have updates from consultants. Special education kindergarten family information session was held earlier this month. We had a pretty good turnout, actually. It was held at Kateri. And I think we even had a few students who were registered at both the public and the Catholic board, who after our information session were like, sign me up, we're going to stay Catholic. So it was part of a recruitment effort even. So that was excellent. Project Search Skills Assessment Interview Day was held on April 5th. Prospective candidates have received offers of acceptance into the program. I've already talked about some of the gifted sessions. CLC Family Information Session was held on March 26th. The ESC Family Information Session in Oakville was held at SJP on April 11th. All these acronyms. STC Family Information Sessions were also held in all regions in April. We did have a CERT Family of Schools meeting, and the topics included in their meeting agenda: pathways presentation, diverse learning needs of a gifted learner, gifted updates, ELITE and SEA updates, flyleaf presentation, an RARC transition presentation, information items regarding review of OSR documents, transportation, transition to kindergarten. These are well jam-packed days of content. Talked about Torch Run and the Special Olympics and ChatGPT. And speaking of the law enforcement Torch Run, for Special Olympics, that will take place Thursday, May 23rd, 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. at River Oaks Community Center in Oakville. So again, that's Thursday, May 23rd, 10:30 to 1 at River Oaks Community. An ASEC conference was also held on April 19th, and that was offered to consultants and iCerts focusing on assistive technology for students. We will be recognizing Catholic Education Week the week of May 5th, and Mother's Day the week of May 12th. On May 12th. For some mothers, they should be celebrated all week and every day. And of course, we will be meeting before then. So wishing all those who are mothers or mother figures happy Mother's Day in advance. Senior manager, speech language pathologist, and almost done. We had some special topics in FASD sessions that were held in March that supported mental health, and in April, creating FASD informed schools, and approximately 50 people attended each after school session. They're always well attended, and there's always such positive feedback. Occupational therapists from Arano Kids presented to staff virtually on supporting cursive writing. SLPs also participated in the Ready, Set, Go information evenings for parents of children starting in JK. And our ASSDP Peers program wrapped up with 10 students completing the program that focus on developing and practicing social skills. And our senior manager, so on behalf of Glenda, we had our 4th and final student mental health meeting at St. FX last Thursday. It was an exciting day. Students shared the various activities, initiatives that they have been delivering in their schools promoting positive mental health. And their final project is creating a video sharing their voice about what they believe and feel is important to share with other students and the system. Stay tuned. This year, we also expanded the Jays Care Junior Girls at Bat program that focuses on teaching baseball skills, confidence, and the connection to physical activity and positive mental health for students who identify as female in grades 4 to 6. A huge shout out to the CYC's educators and ICYC supporting the program. There will be 3 tournaments this year, which will include over 400 athletes. The tournaments will run 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. The Burlington tournament is May 21st at Ireland Park. The Oakville tournament is May 22nd at River Oaks. The Milton tournament is May 23rd at Lion Park. And there are no rain dates, so come out and watch the fun, rain or shine. And then Mental Health Awareness Week, another huge shout out to the ICYC team who created the toolkit that was shared with schools to promote positive mental health and build awareness. CYCs are busy in their schools celebrating this important week and continue to promote and build awareness, capacity building year round. And from the coordinator, last section, experiential learning opportunity at Mohawk College. Several department heads, ICERTS, co-op, and Pathways staff members attended a tour and presentation of the CICE program at Mohawk College. This experiential learning opportunity provided them the opportunity to learn about the program as an opportunity for special education students looking to participate in post-secondary education experiences. In partnership with HSTS, an updated transportation request process has been established to ensure a more accurate and seamless process for 2024. All elementary certs attended a family of schools meeting on April 9th, where they engaged in a full day of learning. A presentation from Pathways highlighting co-op, diverse learning needs of a gifted learner. So some of these we've also talked about, including a presentation on the use of AI as a tool for learning. Lots of conversation. I was at a conference last week. There was a lot of conversation around the use of AI and its implications and also its benefits. So we're in interesting times. Our 4 essential skills classes had the opportunity to participate in the CDSB skills event on Friday, April 19th at Country Heritage Park. This event provided the opportunity for students to engage in inquiry-based challenges that focus on skills connected to technology and skilled trades. Not only did they have fun, but they were able to add to their list of experiential learning opportunities that will help them shape and better determine their future pathway and showcase their talents outside of the regular classroom setting. Some consultants and ICERTS attended the Asset Conference, and they heard from keynote Michael McCreary. And several department heads attended a day with the Pathways department where they learned about skilled trades. They participated in welding in Boilermakers in Burlington and toured the Canadian Welding Bureau in Milton. This provided them with hands-on experience to speak about trades to many students. And that concludes all the activity for April. Yep. Are you sure? I'm sure. And I crossed some stuff out.
Is there any questions at all on the superintendent report? I know there was a lot there. Everybody, if you want to take some time to go through it. Yes, Director Fine.
Out of curiosity, that mental health audit that you went through, is that for the teachers or the students? How does that work?
They're actually auditing the programs and looking at our partnerships with, it's actually the Ministry of Health's audit, but they're reviewing the partnerships they have. And so as a school board, some school boards were selected as community partners, and they say it was random, but I don't know that it was random, to be honest, that we were selected. So it's a conversation around our programs, the services that we provide students and parents in the community who our community partners are. And that's the initial stages. I don't know how deep this audit's going to go, because we had our first meeting and then we set up our second meeting, and it seems like after that meeting we'll know a little bit more. Maybe there's several more meetings, I don't know, or if that'll be the extent of it, if it's just interviewing with myself. Actually, Glenda is also a part of the, at least the initial stages of the audit. So I know for the SEA, we had to present, you know, summary to some questions that they had asked us, and wanted to see what SEA equipment in action looked like. So I'm not sure to the extent, it's still in the early stages.
Okay, so did they tell you like the purpose? Is this to identify any gaps or?
Yeah, so they're looking at how successful the partnerships are. What are the areas of gaps? What are the areas of needs? I've been very honest about, you know, what we're seeing as far as a trend. So what are some, are the statistical, you know, statistics that we can share about what we're observing, what we're experiencing as a board, and then talking about a need that, and how we can address the need. So in some cases, you know, parents will come to us and they're really looking for service, but we're not healthcare clinicians. So how do we bridge the gap between students who may not be school ready but come to school? How do we support students in crisis? How do we support families that are worried about home and food security, insecurity, and how that makes them feel, or how it manifests? So it's such a rich and far-reaching conversation. I can't imagine that because our next meeting that we have is for an hour. I think this is a topic, you know, respectfully, we can talk about for hours and hours and hours, just because there's so many ways that mental health affects certain communities. We even talked about like racialized communities and some of the stigma that still exists around mental health, and talking about mental health. Accessing services is also a barrier. Wait lists in the community is the barrier. So I've been very honest about what some of the successes are in our board, as well as some of the areas that we see as a growing need. And we hope it helps to inform some improvements or best practices in the province. So.
Thank you so much. Margaret, would you just be able to, any of those dates that might be pertinent for SEAC members? So if they want to attend the torch run, or they wanted to, if we could just send out, if there's, again, dates that would be specific that SEAC members may want to come out and participate or see, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, wonderful. Thank you again very much for that report. So item number 10 is SEAC discussion items or questions. I haven't had anything submitted. Was there anything that anyone wanted to bring up under this item? No? Okay. Item number 11 is meeting summary and next steps. So we have a couple of things that we're going to be sending out to everybody, the policies in red line version, the form to fill those out, follow up. We're going to send out the form again for people to feedback for the spec ed plan. Yep. So you take a look at your emails and also the summary of dates for some of those things that were mentioned in the superintendent report. Our next agenda, our next meeting is Monday, May the 27th. I believe it's almost the end of the year. We have a few resolutions for absentees this evening. So we did receive regrets from 3 of our committee members. So I just need a motion to excuse Rhonda, Chris, and Amanda. So if somebody could move that.
I'll move it.
Thanks, Rick. Seconded. Trish. Thank you so much. Okay, and that takes us to adjournment and closing prayer. So if I could get a motion to adjourn. Usually that's the first one.
I'll second.
Trish moves and Rick seconds. Thank you so much. If you'll join me, with our closing prayer. So in the Son of our faith, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Blessed are you, O God of all creation. Each day you spread before us the rich and wonderful diversity of the human family created in the divine splendor of your love. Fashioned in your image, you call us to love one another with the same tender care with which you brought us to creation. Each one of us is but one small part of the glory that is you. As we serve the students and families of the Halton Catholic District School Board on the Special Education Advisory Committee, fill us with your grace, guide us with your wisdom, and give us the strength and courage to do your work so that it may always be said of our every act, God saw that it was good. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you everybody for a wonderful meeting, and we will see you next month.